Please won't you pray with me? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts together find their way into the heart of God this morning. Amen. T.S. Eliot once said that April is the cruelest month. This April is especially the cruelest month. But he said that because the return of spring is a reminder to all those who suffer that the world blissfully goes on. Young lovers canoodle in the park. Children play in the mud. The sun shines cheerfully. When you can't be happy during a time that is supposed to be full of happiness, sometimes the depression is worse, you know? Sometimes it's worse than it would be in the dead of winter when the season matches our mood. So thank God for April days like this, for those of us who are depressed, right? The season matches our mood. And like Job, some of us are crying out to God today. You have destroyed my hope. And not just because of the forecast for snow and sleet. Some of us feel pain just like Job, only the pain of our bodies. Some of us are grieving. We mourn for ourselves as the waters of our tears wash away the soil of the earth. That is what Job cries out. I love Job because he tells the truth without trying to spin it. Amen? He's faithful too, even in his depression. I love that. Job is hopeless because that's just where he's at. And he's not afraid to say it. You would be too if you were Job. He's a good, righteous man, and he loses his family, he loses his possessions, he loses his health. So Job says bitterly that there is no hope for humanity. And he means it, because that's what he feels. Sometimes we just say that. However, he says, there is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again. The tree in my backyard before I moved into the parsonage was cut down to a stump, and it's growing these ugly, ugly branches up into the air, just reminding me every day of the resurrection, right? I'm just going to keep it like that and pretend it's beautiful. Have you ever loved a tree? Have any of you ever loved a tree? Yeah. Have you had a tree that in your loneliest times gave you hope or shelter or a place to hide or climb? I think you have pieces of paper that have to be passed out or are passed out, and crayons. Did you get them? Yes. Can you pass those out if they haven't been passed out? I'm giving you those pieces of paper. Megan and I are giving you those pieces of paper so that you can draw a picture of your tree. You don't have to if you don't feel like drawing, but you can. You can draw a picture of that tree, and you can bring them forward toward the end of our service, and we will bless your trees together with our new tree. Do you all have your pictures? Yeah, okay. Good. Oh, you're already drawing a beautiful tree. So, when Charlie Gray's wife and Pat Kay's mama and Jeff Kay's mother-in-law, Jeff Kay is here, Pat Kay is here, Charlie Gray is there, and Beth, Kate, and Jen's grandma, and Christopher, Ellie, Matthew, and Julie's great-grandma, right? I got them all? Grace Gray died in 2016. We blessed a tree, didn't we? We blessed a tree, didn't we, Charlie? The family wanted to plant a tree in honor of Grace, who lived life abundantly. She was a mean cook, and a singer and a performer in Broadway musicals, and the life of the party. Grace was described by her grandchildren as fiercely loyal to her family, almost to the point of absurdity. My favorite story about her is that Beth said probably if her grandkids had ever come home and said that they ran someone over with the car, she would have immediately responded with well, they shouldn't have been in the street then. Family came first. Grace spent hours and hours talking with and getting to know her adult grandchildren and their children. When her daughter Pat had cancer, she and Charlie kept the family running. Grace was a survivor, but she was never a martyr. Grace had a difficult childhood with a mentally ill mama whose memory she preserved with beautiful stories about the good stuff without glossing over the bad stuff, right? She was a 4-time cancer survivor of 4 different kinds of cancers. And she survived the death of her youngest daughter, Janet, which was the deepest pain she had ever experienced. And her light didn't even diminish in the midst of her painful slide into dementia after that. She embodied resurrection. She practiced resurrection. The grave could not hold her. The tomb could not stamp out her light. And so when Grace died, our beloved family planted a tree. The family couldn't think of a better way to honor Grace, but to choose a memorial that would bloom every year despite the fact of death. They chose a Rose of Sharon tree because it will bear flowers each year on Charlie and Grace's wedding anniversary, which is in August. Is that right? Everyone that came to her beautiful memorial service blessed the tree together, raising up their hands. And I invited the family to come forward, including the great-grandkids, to help me. And I said, Creator of life and sustainer of seed and soil, of tree and flower, you have created this world and all that lives in it. It is you that we come to in this prayer of dedication and blessing, for you are the giver of life and the sustainer of all that lives. We come to you to dedicate this tree in memory of Grace Gray. We plant a Rose of Sharon tree in memory of her sweetness on this earth, in memory of the way she planted deep roots of love in this world despite hard soil. We give you thanks for Grace's life and come to you in our tears and sorrow. May this tree remind us of this one whom we love and who is held forever in your never-ending love. May our tears water it, because our tears are sacred reminders of the love that Grace left us with. May this tree dig deep roots and grow wide branches to bear witness to your abundant love made known in our sister Grace. We ask this blessing upon this tree and upon we who mourn, that life might dwell and bear witness to the resurrection. That's what I prayed. The survivor tree. It is still in Pat's yard, blooming Grace's love every summer. At the scent of water, it will bud and put forth branches like a young plant. So it is spring, sort of, right? And resurrection is everywhere you look. It's sprinter, somebody said. Sprinter, right? But resurrection is still everywhere you look. Even on a gray and sleety day like today, the earth we stand on is proving to us that life conquers even death. There are crocuses popping up, and Davis farmland is open. I went there yesterday. Hooray! This past weekend, Kristen Nelson, Emily Zinkis, Melissa Feller, and I represented First Church at the Revolutionary Love Conference in New York City this past weekend. I fell down on my face the first day and I got a black eye. I'm serious, just fell right on the floor, got a black eye. And our beloved parishioners practiced revolutionary love by waiting to laugh and take pictures until after they made sure I was okay. That's revolutionary love, yes? We saw every religious famous person we could think of at that conference, people I'm always quoting to you in my sermons. We walked around starstruck. We listened to the people that I admire most talk about how to heal our country with God's revolutionary love all day long. It was absolutely amazing, and it was absolutely overwhelming emotionally. And we were tired of crying, so we took some time off on Saturday afternoon to explore the city. Now, it's been a long time since I've been to Manhattan. What about you? When was the last time you went to Manhattan? 2 weeks ago. Oh, forget it. You're so metropolitan, Harpers. We can't all be like you. And we went to the September 11th memorial. Have you been? Have you been since they finished the pools? Have you been? So I hadn't been before. And if you're tired of crying, don't go, right? No, it's amazing. I had no idea what to expect, and I'm glad I didn't because its power caught me off guard. Don't you love it when that happens? 2 seemingly bottomless pools, a waterfall of tears burrowing into the earth, the exact size of the Twin Towers. I mean, it is huge, humongous. All of the names of the victims carved into the walls of the pools. It was massive. It is massive, like our grief is massive. It was a lamentation, isn't it? It's a lamentation, just the structure of it. Like Job crying out to God, but the mountain falls and crumbles away, and the rock is removed from its place. The waters wear away the stones. The torrents wash away the soil of the earth, so you destroy the hope of mortals. You prevail forever against them, and they pass away. You change their countenance and send them away. Their children come to honor, and they do not know it. They are brought low, and it goes unnoticed. They feel only the pain of their own bodies and mourn only for themselves. In the midst of those chasms of grief, Kristen, Emily, Melissa, and I came upon a tree. Have any of you seen this tree? The survivor tree. It had a bouquet of flowers in its branches to honor the victims that were killed in a truck attack in Germany just hours before. Already, there was a memorial to them. It was called the survivor tree. I did not know about the survivor tree. So in the midst of hundreds of oak trees that grace the plaza of the National September 11th Memorial stands one calorie pear tree. Calorie pears are common in New York City, lining sidewalks from the Bronx to Brooklyn, but this pear tree is unique. Now known as the survivor tree, it has a story etched into its very bark, one that begins at the original World Trade Center. The original World Trade Center had a plaza that was surrounded with trees. The trees were there to provide some beautiful reminders of nature in the midst of the concrete jungle that is Lower Manhattan. And the survivor tree was one of those trees, a calorie pear, indistinguishable from the others. And when the World Trade Center was destroyed on September 11, 2001, in the largest foreign attack on U.S. soil, the destruction filled the 16-acre complex with over 3 billion pounds of debris. You all remember that. We all watched as thousands of workers and volunteers from across the country flocked to New York to help with the recovery effort, desperately searching amid that debris for survivors. And amid the fiery wreckage, someone found a tree in the course of her recovery work. It was severely burnt, a number of its limbs reduced to stumps, and its bark was totally charred. But it somehow continued to sprout leaves from beneath that billions of pounds of rubble. They coordinated its removal from the site and brought it to the Arthur Ross Nursery in the Bronx, and they replanted it there, and Parks Department employees dedicated themselves to keeping that tree alive. for years and years and years and years. And then they replanted the tree at the site of the World Trade Center Memorial in 2010 while it was still being constructed. The tree's formerly burned and gnarled stumps now extend into long branches, each sprouting white blossoms in the spring. Still, its bark carries a reminder of the attacks. While the new limbs were smooth like a young sapling, the tree's older bark shows signs of age and scars from the tragedy that it endured. The line between old and new divided the tree's past and present. Like Jesus, who appeared to the disciples with holes still in his hands in resurrection appearances, yes? The tree experienced a resurrection with the old wounds still intact. So like those of us who have been through chemo and radiation, or the death of a loved one, or addiction recovery, or survived a car accident, or the end of the relationship, or the trauma of abuse, those of us who got up out of our graves with wounds intact, those wounds we still carry are reminders that we survived, like the survivor tree. New life sprouts on us like a tree in the wreckage, like a tree that blooms in summer, like hope. Joe Daniels described the survivor tree at the World Trade Center site as a living symbol for everyone around the world who has shown strength and resilience in the face of devastation. Once the survivor tree had been planted, Mayor Bloomberg suggested collecting the seeds and growing saplings from them to allow the growth of a new generation of trees. Isn't this what resurrection means? In this way, descendants of the survivor tree will be able to live on into the future. So, beloved, we are descendants of the survivor tree, of that survivor family tree that produced Pat Kay, yes? And her children and her grandchildren. The blessing that I'd like to leave you with is called Think Like a Tree, and it's by Karen I. Schrag. Soak up the sun. Affirm life's magic. Be graceful in the wind. Stand tall after a storm. Feel refreshed after it rains. Grow strong without notice. Be prepared for each season. Provide shelter to strangers. Hang tough through a cold spell. Emerge renewed at the first signs of spring, whenever they come. Stay deeply rooted while reaching for the sky. Be still long enough to hear your own leaves rustling. Amen.